Well,
Everything went okay on Sunday with the flags?
Yeah, it went really well.
Yeah,
We
we're
need some
very
more
well.
rubber bands.
so before we
There's
go
no rubber bands in Medford.
No.
Yeah, who's got the rubber bands?
I
The
went to
kids said they
Spots.
were
I
putting
went
them
to
in one of the
Binkley's.
blue buckets. They took all the ones I had and said, we'll take care of it, and went off and said, we're putting them in the blue bucket.
There was a box that had the lights in it. Some of the lights.
Yeah, I had that,
box
but
had-
that only had like 100 in them.
Yeah, that's all I had. I don't know where the rest of them went. That's kind of why I knew we were short on that one. So, but
I think we only had like 20 or 30 flags by the end of it that didn't get rubber banded. Maybe less.
I think there might be more. I don't know.
Think? I don't know.
well, if Susan's not here,
she's saying technical difficulties. Trying again. Okay.
Uh-oh.
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 Lost you.
What's that?
What is that? Are you serious? You don't know who your president is?
I mean, something went awry on mine. I don't know. There. Oh, all right. I see everybody. Okay.
There you go. All right. Well, this is our club. As Chris, we're gonna have to get a better photo. I searched the internet for you, and that's
There's
all I
no such
found.
thing. Here's a good one.
Why don't you have Susan? You need the one from Susan with Fox News.
Whoop. All right. So while we're waiting for Susan, unless you have any other comments, David, or anything, anybody, we can kind of introduce our speaker. Or do you want to, Chris, why don't you take over because you're kind of the president-elect.
Okay. Well, Paul, I haven't been read in, so perhaps you can tell us what's up.
Hi, I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I've been catching up on my reading, but we all know that book pretty well. How much time do you allow for a speaker in the morning?
2 hours.
I think I could curtail that a bit. Let me tell you who I am first, and that is, my name is Paul Quintavala. I live in Broomall, PA. I've been a Rotarian and a governor for about 12 years now. I'm part of an organization. I'd like to do share screen now, if I may, if somebody will allow that to come in.
Let's see how I can do this here now.
Okay.
Oh.
Working on it.
All right. I can do a little dialogue in advance. Rotoplas is a contraction of two words, Rotary and plastic surgery. It's an organization that was started in the mid-1990s by a Rotarian who was a plastic surgeon in San Francisco. He learned of children who had need for plastic surgery for cleft lip and cleft palate. And I'm sure we've all seen pictures from organizations like Smile Train, and they tell the story quite well. It's a procedure that's been tried by doctors for about 2,000 years, not with much success until during the Korean War. There was a naval surgeon stationed in Japan, and he developed a technique which has become the basis of plastic surgery for cleft lip and cleft palate to this day. I'm still disabled and can't share my screen.
It should just start right up. Like at the bottom, you don't have a share screen down there? Everybody should have that. Paul, Tommy, you did it the other day, didn't you? Everybody should be able to share a screen if they want, but only one at a time.
Oh yeah, host disabled participant screen sharing. So it's on your end, Rich. Or should I say Karen?
Yeah, whatever.
Okay, so that's what started. I can tell you a bit about it and why it happens. When the fetus is being formed in the womb, it starts around the 6th week of gestation. The face is formed, not growing like a clown, but it comes together in parts, and the face comes together from left and right and meets in the middle, and that's where it's joined. But sometimes, and for some reason, it doesn't make it all the way. And the first thing that's noticed, and the least of the two, is a cleft lip. That is a split in the middle of the lip. It used to be called a hare lip, H-A-R-E, like a rabbit. A very unkind thing to say, and that's gone away pretty much. The causes of it are, well, largely it's genetic. There are people who inherit that kind of fault. The fewest number of people who have that are blacks in Africa. Then it becomes a more common condition in Europeans, more so in Asians, and then more so than that in the New World continents. It is most pronounced in isolated communities like islands in the Pacific. The Philippines is a good example. Isolated communities in Central and South America. Tribal groups, the Mayans, still exist up in those hills. Worldwide, there's an average of one occurrence like this every 650 children. In these places that are isolated, it's one every 450. That's a big ratio. If you think about being in a stadium with 65,000 people, that will tell you there are 100 people who were born with a cleft lip or palate. You'll never see them in this country because we fixed that. Whether the family has money or not is irrelevant. It gets fixed because it's a tragic thing. In third world countries, they can't do that. If you look at a country like Bangladesh or, I was going to say India, but I'm thinking of Nepal. There's one doctor for every 10,000 people. In this country, we have 350 doctors for 10,000 people. Enormous. In this country, we earn, on average, and actually a little over $50,000 per employee. In countries like India, Bangladesh, and in South America, it's between $1 and $2 per person. So these things just simply don't get cured. The consequences are horrendous. For a child who is born with a cleft lip, it's considered in most countries that are third world, which are also very superstitious, that there's something wrong with the mother, and she can be isolated from the community. The child may be hidden. As the child grows up with a cleft lip or palate, they're estranged from the other children. As an adult, they're less likely to have an education, hardly likely at all to get a good job, marriage, etc. In countries such as India, a child is the social security of the parents. So if the parent is old, you look to the children to take care of them. In third world countries, that this child doesn't have a chance. So the child suffers from its horrible appearance. When there's a cleft lip, a palate rather, and I'll show pictures, there's a hole in the roof of the mouth. That means the child's mouth and sinuses are connected. That means there's an open passage to the lungs. So when an infant goes to suck milk, it doesn't work. The milk goes up into the sinuses, down into the lungs, out the nose. Well, they suffer from malnutrition. If they're fortunate, and that happens occasionally, they have access to an extra long nipple that is manufactured for this process, and they force it down the child's throat, and they can grow. If a child is allowed to continue like this, and they get to a point with solid foods, now the sinuses are filled with food particles that will putrefy, cause deafness, etc. Just one nightmare after another. A common consequence is the abandonment of the child or infanticide. In India, between 60 and 80,000 children a year are abandoned for one reason or another, and these children are in particular. In China, we saw many children in orphanages who had this condition. As I said before, infanticide is a common phenomenon. One of our Rotarians in Calcutta has a small factory of business on the street, and I won't go into how people were killing the infants, but it was horrendous. He set up a small table or countertop with a covering over it and a light bulb and signage that said, if you don't want an infant, you can leave it here and we'll take care of it. So it's a drop-off station for unwanted infants. We asked, how does that work? He says, well, the first day they left the baby and stole the light bulb. Well, welcome to poverty. That's the sort of thing that happens. So those are some of the consequences. How are we on?
Waiting on you.
allowing me
Come on,
to,
Paul, you should be able to click it.
Pardon me?
Click share screen at the bottom now. It should allow you.
Okay. I think you're absolutely right. Now you should be seeing the word rotoplast. Are you?
Yep.
Oh, we get lucky in our old age. So that's what we've been doing since the mid-1990s. That's a picture of a surgeon who started all this. He's 80+ years of age and has been on over 80 missions. Mission is 15 days long, so he spends time. The lady on the right is our CEO. She deals with Rotary clubs in 26 different countries, different time zones, different languages, different legal systems, etc. And she coordinates recruiting medical personnel from around the country, Canada, Europe, the Philippines, Australia, and her office pulls everybody together to go on a mission. The local Rotarians in these countries work with leasing hospital facilities, getting hotel and land travel arrangements made, et cetera, they get their visas, everybody gets their shots, and we go. On a typical mission, we'll see 10 Rotarians, and the Rotarians will carry the boxes, will work the computer to retain medical records, take photographs that go into the child's file, some before, some after. There are jobs like minding the, I want to say nurseries, that's not the word, it's just escaped me for a moment. And there are people who transport children. Sometimes that's an easy job if it's in one place, let's say within a hospital, and sometimes it's laborious. In Mali, not Mali, excuse me, Burma, the children's ward was in one building and the surgical building was a third of a mile away. And traveling back and forth was really quite a chore. It's the sort of thing we do. So she is a Rotarian rather, in San Francisco. She's a former governor from Massachusetts. So we've been through these three things in the waiting room. I'd like to show you what a cleft lip looks like. A surgeon who sees this will tell you that that child's lip has everything needed to be put back together and form a correct looking lip. It's a surgery that takes around an hour. Now, I'll be showing you some examples of this. The child, as you see on the left, is a cleft lip. And if you notice that the nose is deformed, it's because the cleft can go that high up. If you look to the right, you can see how wonderfully that child's issue has been corrected. That's only about a week later. That's pretty good. The top of the mouth is a bow, and it's important that the top of the lip match, as you say, in a continuous line perfectly. If it's off more than a millimeter, people will notice it immediately. I've actually seen a surgeon take apart a lip and put it back together again in a more satisfactory arrangement. I won't describe the operation, but if you like, I'll talk with you about it at another time. I will say that you look at the child on the left, the surgeon first opens it all up right down to the gums and the teeth, and then comes to pull it together. As Rotarians, we're invited and urged to come to the operating room, stand at the shoulder of a surgeon who will explain, as if you were a med student, exactly what's going on. But you can't do any surgery. That's against the rules. Here we are, little boy in India. You can see that correction being made. Little girl from Peru, I believe. And that's a pretty severe job if you look on the left. It's a big, big opening. And you can see what a cute child she is. And she's the first one invited to the prom. How could you resist her? When we work with these children, personally, I will tell you that I was aghast at first. Some of them were, and I'll show one or two pictures that are uncomfortable to look at. But I find that the kids don't know that they have a problem like this. And so they're kids, they're children, they're sweethearts. And I love the parents. The parents have not abandoned anyone. They've come to us for help, and as Rotarians, and well, we're there. Now, this child has a cleft palate. The illustration shows pretty much a classic cleft palate. Again, I won't go through the procedure correcting it, but it's not simply a matter of connecting that hole and filling it in. It takes a couple of hours. The child whose picture you see has a cleft that goes beyond just the roof of the palate. It goes clean through to the jaw bone area. That has to be completely taken apart, bones and all, and has to be resectioned and pulled back together. On one particular mission, I witnessed a surgeon chiseling open the pelvis of an infant, a child rather, and then scooping out bone marrow. And then opened up the child's mouth, rearranged things as possible as an opening, and packed in that bone marrow, which had stem cells. Now, stem cells are like little Rotarians. They want to do good in the world. They want to fit in. They look around and say, oh, I know where we are. We're in the jaw. Let's form a jawbone. And they do. They grow it, and it becomes a perfect match. Now, here's a picture of a young lady in India, and you can see in her mouth that she has that. Oh, I'm sorry. She has that cleft palate. This is a young lady who looks perfectly normal, but she won't speak to people because of that hole in the mouth. Her voice is completely inaudible. Not her, but another girl was telling me that until she had that surgery done, she would never even look at a telephone. She wouldn't consider it because no one could possibly understand her. The next picture is pretty awful. Is a small child, just about a month and a half of age, and it's a complex job. I will tell you that can't be done in one operation. These things require us to go back year after year and continue doing that kind of surgery. The picture on the right shows just what a sweetheart, good-looking kid he is. Now, I mentioned it's hereditary. The man you see here with his son, and sometimes you'll see two sons and twins occasionally. We don't normally do surgery for adults, and that's one of our little secrets, is that we don't close the door. Someone comes to us looking like that. In this case, the nurse saw him in the waiting area and said, come here, and she dragged him in. Surgeon looked at him, they agreed to stay a little late that evening, and they repaired his lip as best you can see. His jaw is still a mess, as is the child's, and there'll be future surgeries made available. Now, I mentioned that we do surgery, provide surgery rather, for all the people who walk in the door, and we try to. And I'll show you some of the things that come to us. This is a webbed fingers and toes. This isn't a bad example. One would think that if they're webbed fingers, just need to cut and separate them, but it's not. It's a complicated operation. It takes a good deal of time. There are tendons, there are nerves, there are tissues that are connected that shouldn't have been, on and on. It requires a good surgeon a good deal of time. Another thing that occurs, we see burns. In third world countries, people have dirt floors. And they cook inside on a dirt floor and they cook outside on a dirt floor. The embers are attractive. Toddlers often are drawn to them and they fall into them. So chest and abdominal burns are not uncommon to us. We were supposed to be in Nepal in March of this year. And the local Rotarians who made the arrangements for us were eager to see us because they had had a severe winter in the Himalayas, and there were a lot of house fires. With the house fires, there were burns, and particularly children. They were lined up to see us, and we couldn't accommodate because we weren't there. Now, this young lady was, I believe, she was 14 years of age when a kerosene lantern broke on her, and she was severely burned. The scar tissue shrinks. In this case, it shrank so much that she was unable to close her mouth without bowing her head down into her chest. She was with us for 3 operations, and I know the surgeon who operated on her, a wonderful woman out of San Francisco, and they tell me that they described the operation to me saying the woman was ruthless. She cut away the scar tissue, threw it on the side, removed some flesh from her lower back and patched it up there, and just continued to do this. After the third operation, she looked like, you see her on the right, she's a volunteer. So whenever we're in Chittagong, she's there. She talks to the parents to assure them that things are okay. She works with the children in the ward to entertain them and so on. She's a precious example of some of the things where we don't talk about doing, but well, you just do it. Tumor removal, she's a perfectly normal woman, but she's got a horrible growth. Again, third world countries, people just don't have the money to get these things corrected. Sometimes there's people who can, and sometimes it's us. We saw this recently in our most recent mission, which was to Monrovia. These are, oops, sorry. These are keloids, keloid rather. It's a scarring tissue that just keeps growing. A woman may have had her ear pierced, didn't heal properly, and the scar tissue didn't get the message, so it just keeps growing. We had a child in Liberia who had these irritations under his arms, and his arms just simply could not go down. And it would grow and grow forever. Our surgeons were able to take that apart, perform a correct closing of the wound. And most cases, it stays at that. But if it's not addressed, I can't. Here's a child who came in, did not have a cleft lip, but obviously had a condition, God knows how long. And our surgeons were able to do something about that. So this is our mission to Monrovia. And you can see where it is on the continent. We don't do a lot of missions to Africa. We're glad to. We're supposed to be in Egypt again in November, but we had to cancel that mission. We've been in Mali, which was a minor disaster because the people who were supposed to show up with their children for surgery did not show up. We understand that the local Taliban didn't want them to participate, so they were scared off, and that was pretty awful. Keeping in mind, we bring about 20 medical personnel with us who have taken 2 weeks off of their life to do this sort of work, and then they go someplace and there's little or nothing to do. It's just infuriating. As I say, we travel with 10 Rotarians. We all dress alike because they make us. We carry 36 50-pound cases with us. We have everything in those cases that one needs to perform operations except a light, a table, and bottled oxygen. But everything else is there that you'd find in a first-class hotel in the hospital of the United States. We get the job of escorting those things. Some trips are easy, like Guatemala is a local drop-off for us. Some places are complex. You have to go through 3 or 4 airports. My record so far is 42 hours of travel. Never again. We like to joke that we travel in first-class luxury. In third world countries, you don't have Greyhound buses. These are 3 across. The center aisle has a drop-down seat, and we use that. In the back, you can see some of our luggage. And again, here we have anesthesiologists, MDs, plastic surgeons, nurses, common Rotarians like you and me. It's part of the adventure. Here's a view from the window of the hospital. You see those gray tanks at the bottom, those water tanks? Those are contributed by the local Rotary Club. Everybody does something good in this world. Rotarians are among the best. A view of the suburbs. It rains regularly in this country, and so black mildew is everywhere. Curacy is particularly on the public buildings, and I can't explain that. We learned that in this country, grass huts are very common. One goes to school up to the high school level. One of the courses that's mandatory is how to build a grass hut, and people learn how to harvest the grass and make the mortar, et cetera, One of the jokes we had is that a lightning rod or a ham radio? We don't know. These are most of the people who traveled. You can see we all wear the same little white shirts. Sorry. We all wear the same white shirts and tan pants and a blue blazer. And so we can spot each other like zebra in an airport. Now, on the right are the local Rotarians who put, I'm sorry, I don't know what's going on today, who put the deal together. One of these Rotarians, I don't know who it was because they didn't speak to him, said that they learned of Rotary when they were in Chicago studying. The hospital on the left is about as good as we can hope to get. Not a bad place. And the operating rooms are just fine. We'll show you in a minute. When one enters, there's a chlorinated water for washing one's hands and sometimes hands and feet. The last time we were there, which would be 6 years ago now, we were packing up the truck with our equipment and luggage when an ambulance came in and a young woman was bleeding profusely. Turned out she was the first case of Ebola to come to the hospital. They didn't know what it was. The medical personnel, and we worked with some of these nice people, stayed. They didn't abandon their profession and their responsibilities. They stayed. They contracted the disease and died. And they are indeed and in truth heroes. And so we were pleased to see that this monument had been constructed for them. This is simply a poster. It gives you an idea of how people are recruited. Now, the local Rotarians do go to public health agencies that contact medical organizations and religious organizations and recruit. But they also just stick up posters. I've seen posters like this in the back of a rickshaw, glued to a wall, handed out at bus stops and so on. Local Rotarians are great people. They're thrilled to see us because, well, because we're in the same organization with the same goals. These are our first patients of the day. We didn't get a lot of pictures of Rotarians on this mission. They're a little on the camera shy side and would shake their heads no when we ask if we can take a picture. But some nod their heads yes, and we do. We'll see that child in the woman's arms in a moment or two. First day of surgery of the mission is called clinic. And we all, including the Rotarians, examine the children. We'll do things like blood pressure, pulse, hemoglobin tests, etc. This gentleman is a professor of anesthesiology at Stanford University Medical School. And he's taking his 2 weeks with us. He does it just about every year. Regrettably, we turn away about 50% of the children who come to us with this condition. It's always for medical reasons. They may be undernourished. They may have low hemoglobin, which we find very often in countries where the people are vegetarians. The child has a heart murmur, a cough, etc. We won't touch the child because it's just too darn dangerous. And the follow-up is limited. Keep in mind, we're going to leave. Now we'll ask the local hospitals, we'll contract with the local hospitals to look after these children after we're gone, and we pay for that. But it's heartbreaking to have to turn away a child. I have never had to do that, but I've been present when parents are told we can't help you. Also, we can just do so many operations in a day. We're only going to be there for a 2-week period, or less than a 2-week period. We actually have 1 day off, in which time the local Rotarians will entertain us. They'll take us, show us some of the country. They'll have a beach party for us. On one particular occasion in China, I was astonished that in Zhejiang, a city of about 9 million people, the mayor of that city wanted to express the city's appreciation and held a banquet for us. 36 dishes. Can you imagine that? And each course came out with a different set of china. It was quite a remarkable event. But sometimes you stay in hospitals, in hotels and such, not necessarily the best. This is an operating room. You can see how many people are involved in a surgical procedure. What's unusual here is that there's daylight coming in. None of us had ever seen daylight in an operating room before. It's kind of a kick. You can see the child lying there. We do something interesting I'll mention to you. These kids are nervous. You know, they leave their parents behind. Someone like me has put them in a wheelchair, and we're bringing them to an operating room through a hospital. And as I said earlier, most of these people have never seen a doctor, never will in their lives. Waiting at the entrance will be an OR nurse, and we have a couple who are famous for this. When we travel, we bring boxes and boxes of Beanie Babies that people donate. And if you people in Medford have any extra Beanie Babies, let me know. I'll come pick them up. Because that child will be met by a nurse who has 2 Beanie Babies in her hands. And in the native language, she'll ask him, which one would you like? Well, you know what? Child's attention is completely taken away from the environment and is focused on those 2 Beanie Babies. Why? Well, in a country where mom and dad can only earn $1 or $2 a day, that Beanie Baby's a big deal. Now, if I would be with the child, I might help to put the child on the table and that sort of thing. But generally speaking, it's goodbye at the door and go back and bring someone else into the other operating room. We generally operate in 2 to 3 rooms simultaneously.
Well, we're running a little late on time. I think we need to kind of wrap up here pretty soon.
Very good. So there's a surgeon doing what the surgeons do. There's a child we saw being carried in, and you can see what her lip looks like. And just to show what one of the others look like. There she is again before and after. And there's a little child with a webbed fingers no more saying goodbye and thank you, Rotary. Okay, that's a wrap up. Any questions?
Paul, this is Susan. Sorry I joined late. Thank you so much. What an informative presentation and very, very, very moving, and that's great work.
Thank you, Susan. As I mentioned earlier, we're recruiting. If anyone would like to join, I can promise you 2 weeks that'll change somebody's life and maybe yours as well.
When's your
Well,
next?
what's your contact information?
I can give that to Susan, and if you would share that, I'll appreciate it. I
Absolutely.
really enjoyed talking with you.
So a lot of these surgeons are not Rotarians. They're just want to volunteer, right?
Yes, a great many surgeons in this country go on missions overseas, a great many.
Mm-hmm.
Other organizations like Smile Train will send one person for surgery, one person for anesthesiology, and then they'll hire local hospitals to do the work, and they oversee that. We prefer to bring our own people. We do much more in-depth work.
Just an idea, because I've been moved with this, and we can talk later about my background, but nonetheless, how much does it cost to actually send one of the surgeons? Is there like a $5,000 budget that needs to get raised to send that surgeon?
A mission will typically run a little over $100,000. Depending on the airfare, etc., it'll go up and down from that. Rotarians pay their own airfare. Hotel and meals and transportation locally provided by the local Rotarians. If you go on a mission with this, you'll have to pay between $700 and $1,500 for airfare. You'll have to get inoculations. And if you're afraid of malaria,
Do they train the locals?
Pardon me?
Do they train the local physicians to carry on?
We will bring in local plastic surgeons and train them in procedures as a courtesy, professional courtesy. We'll bring research people with us from time to time. So we stay extremely active.
Okay.
What type of work?
What's your background? How did you start this, or how did you get involved?
Personally, I'm a Rotarian. Someone came to my club just as I'm coming to yours. And I said, well, for lack of conversation, I said, I'd like to participate. I would like to do that kind of good thing. And 6-7 months later, I found myself in Sichuan, China. And met some of the finest people I've ever known in my life. And continue to. It's just, they're my betters. And I know that. And it's an honor for me to be with them. Anyhow.
What type of work does the average layperson do? You say you bring all these surgeons and professionals, but you also bring You know,
Insurance
somebody like us, what do they do?
salespeople, myself, I've been in the food service industry. As long as you can push a wheelchair, we've got a job for you. If you like entertaining children, can handle a hand puppet, you're a prize. We'd love you. It's pulling the whole thing together that does it.
So is
Paul, when you,
Rotary a separate nonprofit, or are you part of, how's that legally structured?
It's 401c3, and it's a nonprofit organization. If you dial rotoplast.com, you can see our website, and that tells you a great deal. You can see some pictures from other missions that we've been on. We do about a dozen admissions a year in a good year.
When is your next mission, Paul?
We're canceled through the first 4 months of next year, so we don't have anything, which is heartbreaking because, as I said earlier, those parents are anticipating us. And that you get a backlog. It's a buildup. With 1 out of every 650 births is another child, another child. Yeah.
Paul, I'm sorry, I have to jump off to teach a class, but I just can't say enough good things about Paul. He knows right where we met because he and I have met at the pop shop a couple of times. He's just an awesome Rotarian, kind of person that makes you proud to wear that Rotary pin. When you send your contact details, could you also send us the donation details as to how we can make a donation to Rotoplast and take a tax deduction since it's a 501c3.
Well, thank you, David. I certainly will do that. Enjoy the rest of your day, sir.
Thank you. Great, great, great job.
Appreciate it.
Question, David.
Thanks, Paul.
Good. Go ahead, Dan. Dan, are you there?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I thought you were going to ask a question.
I think I did.
Oh, okay. You usually have so much to say. I'm surprised. It's not your...
Is that necessary?
This is a tough club.
Yeah.
Paul, I've been to China several times. We've adopted 3 kids. My actual granddaughter had a cleft lip. My son-in-law is a plastic surgeon, so I'm very familiar with the whole operation, and I think I want to get involved somehow to help you guys out.
Well, you've made my day by saying this. Thank you. I will send my information to Sue, and I'll look forward to getting together. I'll come out to Medford. I know a nice little place to get a bite to eat there.
Yeah, good. Yeah, we'd love to see you in person, Paul.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
In that case, I don't want to keep everybody from the rest of their day.
Yeah, thank you
Right.
so much. It was
Thank you.
really nice virtually.
Thank you, Paul.
All right, thank you.
All right, we want to do the 4-way test, Susan?
Yes. Is it
The truth is it all concerned with the goodwill, friendships, be beneficial to all.
All concerned.
Hey, better than last week.
Yeah, it was.
Much better.
All right, guys. Have
All
a
right.
great day. Everybody enjoy. Take care.
See
Chris, did
you
you
on
get
Wednesday.